Dan Moore, I'm so happy to see you today. Thank you so much for being here. You have inspired me. I I have listened to a couple of your conference, the embodiment conference. That's where I initially ran into you. And then I found out after listening to these two brilliant sessions where you just had the most simplest, most deeply caring way of sharing your experience and your insights and a pathway to a person's own wisdom. I was really, drawn to you. I just was drawn to your work. I just felt that, here's a person and that has a real fountain of brilliance to pass on, and I wanted to know more. I got super curious about you. So for those listening, Dan Moore is a body-mind practitioner, and he does body therapies. He's an osteopath. You've been going at this. You must have a passion for it because it's been about 30 years, I think, that I was reading. And so I really felt that you needed to be here as a bonus integration session so people could really transition from listening to the other retreat days and those experiences and somehow integrate them into their day-to-day life, because you were just so on the spot. Here is something that you can do right now, super simple. Tune in no matter where you are or what you're doing or who you are. So welcome to you, first of all.
Thank you, Sheila. It's just such a lovely privilege to be here. And it's really interesting hearing you say those lovely words. I'm thinking, who's she talking about? And then realizing you're talking about me. So I am very grateful for that. Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah. I was really curious too about, just your experiences in what you've been doing along the way here that I was just describing. In particular, if there was anything that you could share about, your experience of a time when self-care just had to go first. It was just a moment where, and just let me know about what that experience was like a little bit. Maybe if there was some, maybe if you had some pitfalls or if there was some payoffs, that kind of thing.
Oh, wow. Big question. Awesome.
Yeah.
Okay. And maybe I'll answer it like this. If I kind of give a real brief history of what I've done, and then in that history, those moments might come up.
Perfect.
So as a young person, I was a martial artist. I did a lot of training. I was a full-on kind of martial arts practitioner. And for various reasons, I ended up transitioning from martial arts into contemporary dance. So I went to professional dance school, which was incredibly grueling and incredibly demanding. But being young and sort of 17, I had that resilience to be able to do that. And it was a really interesting time because when you watch the dancer dance, it's beautiful, it's elegant, it's effortless. But what you don't see is the pain and the sweat and the angst and the training that goes into producing that. And so I went through that process. And in that process, I actually ended up getting injured. I injured myself quite seriously in my knee. And as a result of that, my body was forced to rest. And I was kind of agitated about resting. Being a young person, wanted to get back in the seat, as it were, and do my dancing again. And eventually, after a long period, I managed to get back. And within a few months, I'd re-injured myself again. So I ended up going to see an osteopath. And this osteopath said something to me that really landed. She said, your problem is not your body. Your problem's your mind. It's the way that you are in your mind is affecting your body. You're tired, you're getting injured. And as a young person, I couldn't handle that. It was information that was true. But for me at that time, I couldn't hear it. But what I did do is realize something inside me said, I've got to follow up on this osteopathy thing. Yeah. So as a result of that, those various injuries, I ended up becoming an osteopath. And I went through the whole process of learning about the body, but I still didn't learn about self-care yet. I was still really good at keep going. I was like the Duracell battery. I could keep going and keep going. And it was a coping mechanism of mine just to keep going. Even though when I got injured, just keep going.
Yeah, I'm sure we can relate.
Yeah. And so I kept going with the osteopathy training, and I got through the osteopathy training, 5 years of that. And in my final 2 years, the fourth and fifth year, I was working full-time as an osteopath assistant. And when I finished my osteopath training, I said, I've got to keep going. I've got to do more. So I then studied acupuncture part-time while I was working as an osteopath.
Yeah.
I was working throughout the week and going to college at the weekends and studying in the evenings. And I did that. And I kept going like that for years until eventually I just went, boom, and just burnt out and fell over. When I burnt out and I fell over, I was in a state of exhaustion, depression, discontent. My whole world had kind of crumbled. And I thought, this was my crazy mind at the time. I'm obviously not doing the right thing. I need to do something else. It was all about the doing. And so I started to do other things and draining more of myself. And to cut to I ended up studying NLP. I started coaching. I started all sorts of things. And it was what can I do? What can I do? What can I do? What can I add? What can I add? And then one day, and I'm not sure when, but it was a few years back now, I had this revelation that self-care is not about doing more, adding more, becoming more. It's a reductive process of recovery. It's about stopping all these things that I'm doing that have become these filters. It's about stopping all the pressure, stopping the striving and the yearning and the trying to prove myself, stopping trying to earn people's love by doing more and more and more for them. And at the same time, with all that stuff that I was doing, I was realizing it's not in the doing more, it's in the doing less and being more. And that happened a few years back. And ever since then, it's been a reiterative relearning process where I revisit that each time. It's like we go round and then a little bit of it smooths off. And then I go round and a little bit smooths off. And I realized that self-care is like washing. You have to do it every day. And there's no point in blaming the dirt. You know, it just happens. So
what
for
a
me,
brilliant metaphor.
thank you. The self-care process is really about that, if you like, the personal, psychological, emotional, spiritual, and physical hygiene of keeping ourselves in good shape on a daily basis. And so for me, I don't know if that answers the question, but it took a long time because I'm a bit thick-headed, a bit stubborn. And I'm kind of like, I need to be on the floor and can't move before I'll say, okay, I get this, I give up. And I think what the universe took me to that point where I was that I can't do anymore. And then that little voice said, then stop doing all that stuff and start realizing that you are enough. And it was like, how do I learn that? And then I realize I'm falling into the same trap. You won't learn it like that. You've got to discover it because it's inside you, not outside you. So
I love what you're saying.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about surrender.
Yeah.
I love what you're saying about attuning to what's happening on the inside when there's so much always going on the outside.
Yeah.
And I really can relate to, you know, being flat out before the surrender happens. You know, when you've had to be really strong, when, you know, you developed a lot of maybe resilience. For me, it's been that. And then you feel like when you're knocked down, you just get back up. You know, you just get back up, you know, just do whatever it takes and, you know, to keep going. And And there's a time for that.
Yeah.
But in this, what you're talking about is not the time for that.
Yeah.
It's a hard one. It's one that I face a lot, actually.
Just another little metaphor has popped into my head if I can share it.
Please.
And I'm seeing myself as this younger person trying to climb this apple tree to pick the apple.
Mm.
And it's hard. And I fall down and I try again. And I get tired and I try again. And I keep trying. And I wonder why I can't get the apple, because I'm trying so hard to climb the tree. And then one day I stop and I look at it and I realize I can't find the apple because that's not an apple tree. That's a lemon tree. You know? And so there's that sense, for me at least, that I was trying so hard to keep solving a problem that wasn't solvable in that way, because I'm never going to find that apple in the lemon tree.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The,
what was happening in my mind visually, I'm quite visual, and was the apple tree was happening, and then it was the story that I made up before you ended it, was that you sat down, you were jumping up to try to reach the apple, and when you sat down and just rested for a while, the season came and the apples fell.
yeah, that too. And I think I love that. I think for me, one of the metaphors that's coming for me is I sat down, the apple fell, and I took a bite of the apple and said, "Wow, this apple's not right. I need to get another apple."
Mm. Yeah.
It's still a lemon. And I think the metaphor for me is about I had to turn and go find the real solution, which is you find lemons in a lemon tree, you find apples in an apple tree. So I had to find out what my lemon tree was. And for me, the lemon tree wasn't striving. It wasn't pushing forward. It wasn't brute force. It wasn't using drugs and alcohol and crazy behaviors to get through things, because that's what I did.
Mm.
It was learning to love myself and to know that I was enough. And that was my lemon tree.
Mm. Yeah, I like that. Yeah, I'm quite noticing I'm really quite introspective today.
Mm-hmm.
I do have my outgoing moments, but I am feeling really like I am integrating. So I guess it is a day of integration. So it's perfect that we're talking today. I have a lot of different ideas about this retreat and what I've been shaping as a way of that being, because how do you have someone like you come and present and not do much, but yet it still be a valuable experience? And so that, realizing that it's not an apple tree, right? That I'm actually looking and striving for something that that is already here. That's already right here. It's really landing right now as you're talking about all this. Thank you so much for bringing that forward. So is there anything that you feel like when you were going through that, and like you say, you keep hitting this, wanting to do something, and then realizing, okay, it's not about the doing something else? Is there something when you said, okay, self-care is coming first, it's got to be at the top of the list, or at least bump it high up there? Was there something that you noticed was real barriers to that, or hurdles that you needed to get past, other than this internal one? Because I'm hearing the internal one.
Yeah, and that's a really big question for me. My journey from where I was, which was not self-care at all, it was self-abuse, it was self-destruct. And on the outside, you wouldn't know that because I was really good at keep going. And now my internal frame is self-care. And it definitely is. And it's not perfect. I still sometimes fall into things that are not so healthy. And that's okay. But I can come back. There's a correction mechanism in place. It's like a sat nav that's pulling me back on track. But in terms of when it happened over quite a long period of time. And there's not a specific event or incident that I can think of. But really it was a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this and a little bit of this. And then somehow over a little period of time, they came together and they formed this kind of canopy around me that said, Daniel, you need to stop what you're doing that's hurting you. You need to start loving yourself, appreciating yourself, and you need to go first, because otherwise you're just going to head down that road. So there were all these little bits that came. Not one piece in particular that I can remember, but the total of all of those things was there was one day when my system put it together for me. It's almost, I kind of think of it like this. It's like the part of me that wanted me to love myself was colluding with the information, gathering it all up and recruiting it together and say, we're going to get him. We're going to get him ready. And then one day they said, I think he's ready, and boom. And it was like I became aware. I need to do this. And in doing this, it means I need to stop behaviors that are not helping here, like drinking as a way of coping. Like going to the gym and pushing myself to the point of hurting myself in order to try and be more. Thinking that my value comes from how much money I could earn. And all of these things, which was kind of a whole heap of stuff, they were all stuff around proving yourself. And there were so many of them. And when I got this sense that if I don't learn to love myself and self-care, none of that matters. I'll probably die sooner than I need to. And I won't learn to experience what it's like loving me. So then my sister says, okay, Daniel, so now we've got to make it practical. And we've got to start getting you to do that. And for me, it was a gentle slide in. I'm a little bit scared of the ocean, a little bit kind of, I'm not phobic, but I go, whoa, the ocean's a big place. There's big creatures in there.
Yeah.
And the idea of scuba diving, jumping into the water would really scare me. So the one and only time I did it, I walked in very gradually from the beach. Gradually, the water, and then I was in, looking around. Wow. Came out to check. I'm still okay. And back in again. I think my journey into self-care was a little like that. It was alluring into the water. It said, come. One foot. You're into your ankles. Now, go to your knees. Come.
I love that, like a beckoning. you know? Yeah. And I hope this retreat and this session is like that for people that are listening, you know? A beckoning.
Yeah.
I love that metaphor. And what about the payoffs? First of all, I do want to touch on, before the payoff, saying the canopy idea. I love that image of each little piece that we can do, whether it's, you know, waking up and not going right to the device or the phone or whatever, or it's a bit of meditation, or it's a walk, or it's some gentle words to yourself, or a little gentle stretch, or whatever those little pieces, drinking a bit more water, you know, that those things, you know, eating a little snack in between meals so that it's, you know, not so edgy when it's time to eat. They all, you know, form this canopy, whatever those things are for you, that that is like a it's a protection, or it's a embrace. It's a like this canopy idea. I just absolutely love that, and I think of a very natural canopy, like in the tropics or something, right? But then the second piece is the payoffs for you, you know, something that tells you that that what you have slowly, as you've inched into the ocean and you're able to peer in and feel the water on your skin, like what are the things that you sense now that are different because of having this self-nurture at the top of your list?
Yeah, cool. So in practical terms, what it means is I'm more patient with myself and other people, and that's a big deal.
Yeah.
It means that I have less need for things and stuff. So I've become really minimalist and essentially. And the more stuff I get rid of physically kind of mirrors the stuff I'm getting rid of in my system. So it's like realizing that I need less stuff. And what I have more appreciation of. So I'm more patient and more appreciative. I'm able to have a broader understanding of things, which makes me more forgiving. Because before it was like looking through a toilet roll tube. It's so focused. My whole world was that I could see through my toilet roll tube. And then my toilet roll tube expanded and it got bigger. And then eventually I went, wow, it's not like it is in my head. It's so much more. So it opened me up to new possibilities and to have new experiences. And new experiences, not only of things that I can enjoy doing, but things that I can enjoy just being. Like being able to, like I never meditated before, never did it. I was too, fast in action. I'd rather go to the gym and hit punch bags. I'd rather do a competition. But now I love to just breathe and just be in my body. I love to appreciate my body, whereas I used to loathe it. I used to be like an abusive partner to myself. I was in an abusive relationship with me. I was the secret abuser of me. And now I'm kind and tender and supportive, and I'm there for me. And I wasn't before.
And how does that bear on your other relationships?
Oh, I think it's made a tremendous positive difference in my relationship. My key relationships is my life partner, Mandy, my 2 children, and my patients too, actually, because in the early days, so when I say early days, not early days, at the stage where I got burnout, I started to resent my patients. They came in with their problems, and God, they don't know how many problems I've got, but I would put my mask on, and really I'm treating them, but I wasn't there and present for them. I was doing it and going through the motions, and I was resenting them, and they were doing nothing wrong. So I began to get resentful towards my patients. I began to get resentful towards my family who were telling me about their struggles, and it became this competition. You think you've got struggles, my struggles are bigger than your struggles. Yeah. And that was going inside.
The madness.
That is gone. And it's like I have that history of that stuff. And now that stuff is in the history and it's a teacher to me. Yeah. And it's, this is what can happen when you get caught up in things and you become blinded by your own stuff.
I love what you just did. I want to just note this arm spread. Like I can get a sense of what it felt like to have be free of that, what you're talking about, those layers of, your stuff.
Yeah. I'll tell you one other thing as well, which is a practical thing for me. I used to have terrible sleep. So for years, I'd go to sleep and keep waking up in the night, and I'd wake up and I'd kind of have these mild panic attacks. They weren't full-blown, I'm going to die panic attacks, but they were, anxiety in my body. My body was doing anxiety and my head's going like, what's happening to me? I didn't really understand it. No reason that I was consciously aware of. And nothing that I did or no technique that I did would actually help that.
Mm-hmm.
There was some whole load of stuff that I worked on. And eventually I came up with this kind of, someone asked me to describe what it was like. And I said, it's like I wake up and I'm encased in concrete.
Mm.
My mind can move, but my body is in this concrete and it just wants to escape, but it can't because the concrete won't let me.
Yeah.
And it was this feeling of stuckness. It was horrible.
Oh.
And part of the payoff for me is that concrete cracked or melted or turned to powder, and it's not there anymore. So now I sleep like a baby.
Like a really good baby.
Yeah, I don't wake up crying and demanding this, but I sleep like a baby, and I sleep really well. And all of that stuff, that kind of self-torture, that self-nightmare, that self-punishing thing, that's gone because I'm caring for myself. So there's no need for that in my life anymore, and I don't tolerate it. In the same way that I wouldn't tolerate someone harming my children because I care about my children, I protect them. Yeah. Now I protect me, whereas before I didn't. I was poor me. I've got this happening to me. Why? What's going on? What do I need to do to stop this? So the one thing I didn't do was protect me. I was in this self-abusive relationship with me, and I was the persecutor, and I was the gaslighter, and I was the spiteful person, and the person I was doing that to was me. It was all done in secret, and now that's gone, and that's a big payoff.
I want to just say how happy I am that you came to this place. Like, I can just feel that this place for you must be so, like, the arms was like so freeing, so connective, so I don't know, just deeply sacred in some way. I know that's the word that comes to my mind. The relationship now, the sense is such a deeply sacred thing versus, like you said, a destructive and painful thing.
Little thoughts just popped in. I do remember a specific event that was a turning point. On the beach. It was a few years ago now. I can't remember how many years ago. And I was discussing with my wife the concept of value, our value as a human being. And I was realizing that I'd really lost sense of what it means to have innate value versus transactional value. Value that we have for what we do for another person.
Yeah.
As opposed to the innate value. Yeah. And all my sense of innate value had gone, and everything was about transactional value. And that was really not a good place. And so on this walk on the beach, my wife and I, we were talking, we came up with a phrase that's become our own personal bedrock. And the phrase was this: it's to become grounded in a deep understanding of our innate self-worth, and to use that as a platform to go out and live a life that we want to live on our terms without the need to apologize, justify, or explain it. And that was that.
Yeah, like you set yourself free. Like, you can do that.
Yeah.
You can do that. You can live from that place.
Yeah. And that was a key point. And then the challenge is remembering to do that and choosing to do that. And when you find yourself, or when I find myself not doing that, it's having a choice to come back to doing that. And remembering that being grounded in a deep understanding of my innate self requires that little bit of personal hygiene. Because if I'm off in the mud, if I'm not good enough, I can come back to be on this foundation again.
Yeah. Yeah, you can always wash off the mud.
Mm.
You can always wash off the muck.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that. I love what you're saying about, just keep coming back to it. And I believe that, yeah, this retreat is about really being able to be with yourself in a kind way, not 24/7. I am such an imperfect person, along with the other 7.5 billion of us,
Yeah.
and I really actually become quite satisfied with that notion. I have no need anymore to go beyond that, and it's such a relief. It's like such a load off that actually success can be on my terms of what that means to me. My life, my relationships, my lifestyle, my way of being is up to me. It doesn't have to measure up to anyone else's thought about that. And again, that was another relief off of my shoulders, that I could come from a set of values that I could feel,
Yes.
that were really from the center of me. So I love what you're saying about that. Now, as we transition into this next piece, where you'll guide people that are listening in through some kind of an embodied, embodiment practices or practice of some kind, just keeping in mind that what we talk about, the being versus the doing, having people just really, come back to that, revisit, about how am I being versus what am I doing, or am I doing it right, or what am I supposed to be doing? So, is there any setup, I'll ask you, Dan, to what we're about to do, like in terms of, do people need a pillow, a blanket, a chair, a floor, anything?
No. Excuse me. What I've got in mind to do is to run through a little process.
Okay.
That is really a process based on principles.
Okay.
To be able to perform tender, loving care at your best.
Okay, great.
Everything you do.
Okay, so at this moment, I'll say to people, grab a glass of water, or maybe take your bathroom break, or do anything you need to do to settle in and be present just for a few minutes while you do that presentation. So I'll invite people to do that now.
I just need to get some water. I forgot to get my water.